9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
Vielleicht nur als 5%.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Our top story tonight on Gravitas is about the civil war against Hindus in Bangladesh. It's a one-sided war in which millions, unfortunately, are living in terror. Where do things go from here? What's the latest from on the ground? And for how long will the situation continue to spiral out of control? On Gravitas tonight, we get you the bigger picture. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show. We get you the unbelievable story of a priest in Thailand who was found hiding 73 dead bodies. This is a story you do not want to miss. Why does Trump want Canada to become the 51st US state? We tell you all about this cat and mouse game with Justin Trudeau. We also get to the story of the world's first AI hospital. All this and more coming up. Our top story tonight on Gravitas is about the civil war against Hindus in Bangladesh, a war in which mobs backed by the government are attacking, killing Bangladeshi Hindus who are and always have been citizens of the land. A one-sided war in which millions are living in terror. A government-sponsored and supported war which has destroyed the harmony of the people and ruined the peace of the land. Nearly 4 months ago, the wealthy industrialist Muhammad Yunus was brought back from near exile abroad to take over the government in Bangladesh. He was put into power as an interim leader to restore peace and ensure the emergence of a democratic government after a fresh general election. Instead, a big instead, Bangladesh has gone from crisis to chaos. Its economy is in ruins, its social compact is absolutely tattered. Fear rules the country. As mobs indulge in havoc undisturbed by the police or the army, the golden land of Bangladesh has become a country of desperate people. Hindus, a significant minority in this Muslim-majority country, find themselves hunted, their faith under attack, their voices silenced under Yunus's watch. Hindu temples have been desecrated, homes reduced to ashes, voices silenced through violence and fear. Across Bangladesh, reports of targeted attacks against Hindus are only mounting. Temples have been vandalized. We've been telling you about this. Hindu leaders have been imprisoned. Communities terrorized by extremist mobs. There are reports of Hindus protesting across the country, clashing with the government, leading to violence and fatalities. An ISKCON monk has been arrested, while a large group of ISKCON monks have been barred from entering India, reportedly without any concrete reason. Amid all this, there is a writ petition calling for a ban on Indian television channels. This is no longer just political unrest. It's an outright civil war waged against a community. Bangladesh's secular constitution guarantees religious freedom, but its foundation is crumbling under the weight of extremism, rising religious intolerance, and poor governance. The entire country teetering on the edge of ruin. And the anger has also boiled over to India and around the world. Let's just tell you more about what's actually happening on the ground and get you the very latest. Hindu monk Chinmoy Krishna Das, arrested on charges of sedition in Bangladesh that sparked a wave of protests across Bangladesh, has reportedly faced a massive setback. Reports state that lawyers have refused to appear for him during his bail hearing that has now been deferred by a month. The Chattogram court has reportedly postponed the hearing to January 2nd next year. The Bar Association has reportedly barred any legal professional from representing the Hindu religious leader. What kind of judicial system are we talking about, where one cannot even get the opportunity to defend themselves? Das was arrested in Dhaka last month on charges of sedition amid protests by the Hindu community in Rangpur, demanding stronger legal protections for minority groups. The monk was reportedly denied bail by the Chattogram court on November 26, triggering protests by his supporters. Like we just told you, the anger against the treatment of Hindus in Bangladesh has boiled over to neighboring India. On Tuesday, in fact, Tripura police reportedly arrested 7 people and suspended 3 police officers after an unruly mob breached the security barricade at the Bangladesh Assistant High Commission in Agartala. Later in the day, Bangladesh summoned the Indian envoy, Pranay Verma, and halted visa consular services at its Assistant High Commission in Agartala. On Monday, a protest outside the Bangladesh Assistant High Commission over the arrest of the Hindu monk Chinmoy Krishna Das reportedly spiraled out of control. A group of protesters reportedly broke the police barricade and stormed inside the commission, indulging in vandalism and allegedly removing the Bangladesh national flag from a pole. And earlier, a bus carrying Indian passengers through Bangladesh came under attack, with passengers subjected to anti-India slogans and threats. The bus en route to Kolkata from Agartala was reportedly attacked in Bangladesh's district on Saturday. Not just that, the targeting of 63 ISKCON monks at the Bangladesh-India border, who were barred from entering India, further underscores the ongoing persecution against minorities. Now, a writ petition submitted to the Bangladesh High Court calling for a ban on Indian television channels only adds to the growing list of measures aimed at silencing dissent and isolating the Hindu population. The situation of Bangladeshi Hindus also drawing global attention. British MPs, including Indian origin MP Preeti Patel, raised the issue in the UK Parliament, condemning the violence and urging intervention from the UK government. In a post on the platform X, Patel said that she was deeply concerned by the awful violence seen in Bangladesh and called on the British government to set out how they engaged with the Bangladeshi government on the issue. Patel was joined by another MP, Barry Gardiner, who raised similar concerns, calling the violence in Bangladesh as unacceptable and urging the UK government to hold the Bangladesh government accountable. UK's Foreign Secretary David Lammy reportedly acknowledged the issues raised by the MPs and said that the UK government was monitoring the developments closely. Meanwhile, Sheikh Hasina has accused Yunus and his allies of orchestrating mass killings and targeting minorities. In fact, she alleged that there was a deliberate plan to destabilize the country, implicating student leaders and opposition figures like BNP leader Tariq Rahman. Addressing an event of the Awami League in New York virtually, Hasina slammed Yunus for the string of attacks on temples, churches and the religious outfit ISKCON. According to two Bangladeshi civil society organizations, in fact, sexual violence and atrocities were committed against Hindu women in 53 districts in Bangladesh since August this year. It further states that more than 60 Hindu temples, 295 Hindu homes, 180 Hindu businesses were either vandalized, looted or burnt, with cases of persecution against Bangladesh's Hindu community only rising. It's clear that this is not merely a political crisis, but fast inching closer to a full-fledged civil war as extremism tightens its grip on Bangladesh and a dangerous narrative of intolerance takes over. Shifting focus now, you will not believe this story. I had a hard time wrapping my head around the brutality involved. This story is also not for the faint-hearted, so here's a warning for you. It's in fact a glimpse of the horrific mysteries that plague the human mind. Have you heard of death meditation? Yes, something like that actually exists. And as the name suggests, this is no ordinary form of meditation. In fact, it's a tradition. Its purpose is to remind practitioners that death might come as soon as the next morning, the next meal, or even your next breath. And so one should act accordingly. You must be wondering why I'm talking about all of this today. A priest in Thailand was found hiding 73 corpses. That's right, 73 dead bodies. Why? Reportedly to practice death meditation. This is not made up. An abbot at a Thai temple has shocked the world. He was caught concealing at least 73 corpses, which he claimed were used to train monks in meditation. And adding to the bizarre discovery, over 600 crocodiles were found in a pond on the temple grounds. How do you even keep multiple bodies in a temple? Would it not lead to foul smell? How was it kept under wraps? And for how long? All this came to light when the Thai police raided the temple on November 22nd. That's when they reportedly uncovered 41 bodies. Local reports indicating that the temple, nestled in a peaceful forest and covering approximately 16,000 square meters, was well known for its spiritual practices and had a large following. The land itself had reportedly been donated by devotees. In fact, the temple grounds include an open-air meditation center, 4 dining halls for visitors and monks, several bamboo pavilions for meditation. In these pavilions, the Thai police discovered 4 to 5 coffins in each pavilion. Additionally, the temple's courtyard contains a large crocodile pond with over 600 crocodiles. It was said to serve as a wishing well. The pond is surrounded by high fences, making it off limits to visitors who can only observe from a distance. Monks at the temple explained that the bodies found were those of individuals who had pledged their bodies to the temple before their deaths. In fact, they say that most of them were either disciples of the temple or their family members. And to support their claims, the monks reportedly presented death certificates and donation agreements to the police. And then a shocking twist came on November 26th. Authorities discovered an additional 32 bodies at another temple in the Bang Mon Nak district. It was later revealed that both temples were associated with the abbot, Fra Ajahn Sai Phon Pandito. He is known for his teachings on clairvoyance and super hearing during his visits to various temples. Clairvoyance, in case you weren't aware, is defined as the power to see the future or to see things that others cannot see. So how exactly did the abbot defend himself? What has he said? As per reports, he defended himself against accusations of illegal activities. He claimed that the corpses were used as a form of death awareness training in meditation, helping monks confront and overcome their fear of death, thus deepening their spiritual practice. He further described this method as his personal innovation and emphasized that it was intended to enhance the monks' mental resilience and discipline. He also noted that many monks had visited to learn this unique meditation technique. Which then brings us back to the police case. What's going on? The way things stand right now, the Thai police have seized the corpses. The temples have been ordered to seize all the related activities, and an investigation into the identities and origins of the bodies has been initiated. The National Office of Buddhism Thailand has also launched an inquiry into the matter. And as the investigation unfolds and more details emerge, the controversy surrounding the temple and its practices continues to spark intense debate in Thailand and around the world. You see, while the abbot defends his actions as spiritual innovation, there are questions about the ethics and the legality of using human remains in meditation rituals. Questions like, can spiritual practices like those at the temple even be justified? Or do they cross a line that should never be blurred? As of now, the outcome of the police investigation is awaited to find out more about what really happened. Our next story is about what's happening in Syria, where fighting continues between the Syrian government forces and the Islamist rebel groups. 8 years ago, Syria's civil war had shifted in President Bashar al-Assad's favor. But last week, a group of armed rebel groups captured Syria's second biggest city, Aleppo, in just over 72 hours. This was a major blow for the Assad regime and has reignited a largely dormant war. On Tuesday, in fact, the anti-Assad forces reportedly reached the northern countryside of Hama. Hundreds of Iran-backed Iraqi fighters crossed into Syria on Monday to help the government fight the rebels. But Lebanon's Hezbollah is yet to join them. Iran has sent backup to aid the Syrian government forces fight back the rebel groups. The Islamist rebel groups had launched a shock offensive last week, remember, seizing a string of cities, including Aleppo. You see, Iran's constellation of allied regional militia groups aided by Russian air power has been integral to the success of pro-government forces. It's because of allies Russia and Iran that the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has been able to subdue the rebels who rose up against him in the past. And for all these years, Syria, with the help of Russia and Iran, was able to keep the rebels subdued. Today, that alliance faces a whole new test, a crucial one. Rebels have made lightning advance in northwest Syria. The seizure of Aleppo is the biggest success for the anti-Assad fighters in years. Government forces had held complete control of Aleppo since capturing what was then Syria's largest city in a siege. This was in the year 2016. In fact, that was one of the major turning points of the war that killed hundreds of thousands of people. And now the head of Syria's main opposition group abroad, Hadi al-Behra, has reportedly claimed that rebels were able to seize the city so quickly because Hezbollah and other Iran-backed groups were distracted by their conflict with Israel. Preparations had reportedly been made since last year for an assault on Aleppo. What's happening now is a major blow to the Assad regime. It basically shows just how fragile Assad's grip on power has become. It also shows that the rebel groups have the military capability to challenge the regime authority, especially in key strategic areas. The rebels comprise many different groups who have fought against the regime since the start of the Syrian uprising. Among them, the biggest is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. It is leading the current offensive and controls most of the northwestern territory held by the opposition. The Syrian government has portrayed what's happening as a large-scale terrorist attack, quote-unquote. In fact, it has vowed to reverse the losses. The question remains whether the opposition fighters will actually be able to remain on the front foot and consolidate their position. And if that happens, they could even launch further attacks on the centers of power. As of now, the situation remains highly volatile and uncertain. Is this a setback for the Assad regime, or is this just a whole new beginning to the escalation? It's too soon to say. For now, Syrian government forces are getting help from Russia and Iran, like we just said. But any prolonged escalation in Syria risks further destabilizing West Asia, a region already roiled by Gaza and Lebanon conflicts. Will Syria be the spark for a wider West Asia war? Only time will tell. On to news just coming in this minute from South Korea, which has declared an emergency martial law in the country. President Yoon Suk-yeol, in fact, has accused the opposition of anti-state activities, including sympathizing with North Korea. As per the latest coming in, the president saying that he intends to rebuild a free and democratic country through the emergency. This is a situation fast evolving. In fact, the riot police, from what we know, have blocked South Korean MPs from entering the country's parliament building in Seoul. So a lot is happening as we speak. Martial law normally means that the government, by military rule and the suspension of parliament and ordinary law, and South Korea's military has said that all parliamentary activities and parliamentary parties are now banned. These are the latest images that we have for you from on the ground. Now, South Korea's opposition earlier this week, remember, accused the president of preparing to declare martial law in order to avoid being impeached for alleged abuse of power. If you're just joining us, these are the latest developments coming in from South Korea, where the president has warned of a threat. And as per the latest details coming in, the riot police also blocking the MPs from entering the parliament. South Korea has declared emergency in light of the latest developments. In fact, from what we know as of now, it has declared that emergency martial law, and the president has accused the opposition of anti-state activities, including sympathizing with North Korea.
들리세요, 형?
We will be closely monitoring those developments coming in from South Korea. For now, we are shifting focus to what's happening with the Israeli military expanding its presence in central Gaza. It has, in fact, been fortifying military bases and demolishing Palestinian buildings. A move that basically suggests that it may be preparing to exert long-term control over the area. In fact, reports suggesting that Israeli forces have occupied a 4-mile road known as the Netzirim corridor. The control of the corridor, which cuts across Gaza from the Israeli border to the Mediterranean Sea, has given Israel the ability to regulate travel across the length of the enclave, keeping hundreds of thousands of displaced Palestinians in the south. And reports indicate this has slowly grown into an 18-square-mile block of territory controlled by the Israeli forces. Over the past 3 months, soldiers have reportedly demolished more than 600 buildings around the road in an apparent attempt to create a buffer zone. They have also rapidly expanded a network of outposts equipped with communication towers and defensive fortifications. The build-up suggests a shift for Israel, which has largely avoided holding Gazan territory, creating a vacuum that has allowed Hamas to reassert control in some parts of Gaza. In fact, the IDF maintains that the expansion is only for operational reasons. Reports indicate the Israeli military has built at least 19 large bases throughout the area, dozens of small ones over the last 3 months. The expansion has also raised speculation about Israel's plans for Gaza's future. In fact, analysts saying the extent of the fortification suggesting Israel is at the very least preparing for a protracted battle in Gaza. Netanyahu toured the Netzarim corridor in a relatively rare visit to the Gaza Strip last month, remember. The Biden administration, meanwhile, has opposed long-term Israeli control in Gaza, which it hopes will become part of a future Palestinian state. And President-elect Donald Trump has called on Israel to finish up the war without stipulating what terms he might deem acceptable for a post-war Gaza.
Thank you very much, everybody.
President-elect Donald Trump is no stranger to controversy, but his latest interaction with the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has left everyone asking, is Trump seriously entertaining the idea of annexing Canada? What are we talking about? As per reports, during a face-to-face meeting in Florida at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort, the president-elect floated the idea of Canada becoming the 51st state of the United States. And by the way, this wasn't some private exchange. It was reportedly part of a larger discussion involving tariffs, immigration, economic policy. Trump, remember, said that he will be imposing a 25% tariff on Canadian imports, a move that could reportedly devastate Canada's economy. So let's just unpack for you what really went down. During that sit-down, Trudeau reportedly told Trump not to impose the 25% tariff on Canada because it would impact the Canadian economy significantly. How did Trump respond? He allegedly countered with a retort asking, is Canada's economy so fragile that it cannot survive without ripping off the US for $100 billion? And then, in a move that reportedly left the people in the room stunned before erupting into nervous laughter, Trump suggested that Canada should simply join the United States as its 51st state. You heard that right. Now, we knew Trump wants to make America great again, but turns out he wants to make America bigger as well. In fact, according to reports, Trump even joked that Trudeau could transition from prime minister to governor and that Canada might need to split into two states, one liberal, one conservative. Now, before we dismiss this as just Trump's trademark theatrics, let's just consider the context here. You see, this meeting was not just a casual conversation. It reportedly marked Trump's first in-person engagement with a foreign leader since his re-election victory. His message was reportedly clear that the US is not backing down on a range of issues like immigration, enforcement, and tariffs, and it expects its neighbors to follow suit. So what does that mean for Canada? Economically, Canada is already on shaky ground. As per reports, the country's GDP grew by a mere 1% in the third quarter, far below expectations. Business investments are reportedly declining, housing renovations are down, and even exports are slipping. The Bank of Canada is reportedly now under pressure to cut interest rates further to stimulate growth. So could Donald Trump be leveraging Canada's economic vulnerabilities to push his agenda? As per reports, the proposed 25% tariff combined with stricter immigration policies could actually further strain Canada's economy. Or is this just part of Trump's broader narrative of US dominance and influence? Now, by framing Canada as a dependent entity, Trump perhaps reinforces the idea that the US holds all the cards in its ties with Canada. While the nervous laughter during that meeting might suggest discomfort, the Canadian government is likely grappling with the implications of Trump's hardline stance. If tariffs and economic threats continue, Canada could face even tougher decisions in the months ahead. So what's the takeaway here? What happens now? Is Trump genuinely suggesting a path towards US-Canada unification, or is this just another example of his bold rhetoric? Either way, the implications are significant. For Canada, it's perhaps a wake-up call to actually strengthen its economy and assert its independence, if it can do that. For the US, it may just be another chapter in Donald Trump's quest to actually reshape global dynamics in America's favor. And as the world watches this cat and mouse game, one thing is certain. Trump's words, no matter how outlandish they may seem, are rarely without purpose. Shifting focus for now, Ukrainian troops are worried about the fate of the Kursk operation. As Kiev continues to lose ground, the troops have been asked to continue fighting until Trump takes office. Our next report telling you why Ukrainian troops are retreating from the front lines. Take a look.
4 months after Ukrainian troops launched their lightning offensive into the Russian region of Kursk, soldiers in the front lines paint a dismal picture of the battle they fear they might be losing soon. With the winter setting in, the cold weather conditions and the Russian onslaught is putting the Ukrainian troops on the back foot. Chronic sleeplessness caused by Russia's constant bombardment and the use of 3,000-kilogram Clyde bombs are robbing the fatigued soldiers of the will to put up a tough fight. Reports cite a lack of equipment and a confusing mix of instructions from the commanding officers have further demoralized the troops. With the Russian forces gradually retaking territory, many soldiers are in retreat. The shifting goals of the Ukrainian government are only adding to further chaos. And now the Ukrainian soldiers are being asked to hang on to this small sliver of Russian territory till Trump takes office in January and begins negotiations. For Ukraine, Russia's slow grinding advance in eastern Ukraine underlines the necessity of clinging on in Kursk. President Zelensky has hinted at ending the war through diplomacy by next year, but Moscow calls it an eyewash. It accuses the West of trying to give Ukraine a respite by pushing ceasefire talks. Russia feels the peace plan will give the West an opportunity to once again pump Ukraine up with advanced weapons.
We are ready for honest negotiations, as President Putin said. However, he advised Zelensky's masters to first force him to cancel the decree that bans negotiations with Putin's government. But we are ready for negotiations if they will be conducted on the basis of a comprehensive consideration of the legitimate interests of each party.
The Biden administration has announced a new aid package for Ukraine in a last-minute effort to boost Kyiv before Trump takes over. Putin, on the other hand, has approved record defense spending in the military budget. With Zelensky wanting to end the war early without getting back all of Ukrainian territory from Russia, one can barely say where this war is headed. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Our next story is about a father coming to the rescue of his son. But this is no ordinary father-son duo. We are talking about President Joe Biden pardoning his son, Hunter Biden, for any federal crimes that he committed or may have committed between 1 January 2014 and 1st of December 2024. The move has led to a series of questions, more so because it came after he previously promised to not use the extraordinary powers of the presidency for the benefit of his family. In his official statement on the 1st of December, Biden said, I'm quoting, "Today I signed a pardon for my son Hunter. From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department, the decision making, and I kept my word even as I have watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted," quote unquote. Well, promises might be meant to be broken, but when these kind of promises are broken, one cannot just pick up the pieces and act like nothing happened. Such actions have serious consequences. But let's just zoom out a bit and look at the history of pardons in the United States. There are several stories that stand out. Just to give you a sense, there are the top 5 presidential pardons in the US that we are focusing on. Franklin D. Roosevelt with 2,819 pardons. Harry S. Truman, 1913 pardons, 1,913. Eisenhower with 1,100 pardons. Woodrow Wilson, 1,087 pardons. And Lyndon B. Johnson with 960 pardons. In recent times, presidents like Andrew Johnson, Gerald Ford, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump have stirred a lot of controversy by granting sweeping pardons or pardoning those close to them. In fact, according to reports, on his last day in office in 2001, Bill Clinton, the 42nd president of the United States, pardoned 140 people in the final hours of his presidency, which is a record number for any president to dole out in a single day and in a few hours. And of these, one of the most controversial pardons was the one granted to Mark Rich, a billionaire fugitive convicted of financial crimes. Reports say Rich had fled to Europe 18 years ago to avoid 51 charges of tax evasion, racketeering, and illegal trading with Iran during the hostage crisis. Not just that, Rich's ex-wife had also reportedly been a major donor for Democrats and the Clinton campaign. Bill Clinton also reportedly used his power to pardon his half-brother, Roger Clinton Jr. What for? Roger Clinton Jr. pleaded guilty to conspiracy to distribute cocaine after trying to sell it to an undercover police officer in the 80s. Even though he spent a year in prison, Clinton's pardon cleared Roger Clinton Jr.'s criminal record. But when it comes to Joe Biden's pardon, it has stirred a massive controversy since we are talking about his son here. What's more, during final weeks in office, the sitting US president is eligible to grant more pardons for federal crimes and issue clemency to those he believes deserve it. So there could be more pardons on the horizon. But with power comes responsibility. And the latest events have put the spotlight back on this particular power that the US Constitution gives the president to grant official clemency. But what exactly is a presidential pardon? And how does it work? Well, it's a power explicitly outlined in the US Constitution. According to Section 2 of Article 2, the president has the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. What's more, the president's power only applies to federal crimes and not the state ones. It also does not apply to cases of impeachment. How much money is your life worth? For Vietnamese tycoon Truong My Lan, it has come down to a little over $9 billion. The 68-year-old is facing the death penalty for masterminding the world's biggest bank fraud, but her life could still be spared if she pays back 3/4 of the assets that she has embezzled. A Vietnamese court on Tuesday, in fact, upheld the death penalty to Lan. Earlier this year, she was convicted of swindling money from Saigon Commercial Bank, SCB, worth $27 billion, which prosecutors said that she controlled. Of these, $12 billion judged to have been embezzled, the most serious financial crime for which she was sentenced to death. She appealed the verdict in a month-long trial. However, the court determined that there was no basis to reduce the death sentence. However, there is still a chance for her to escape the death penalty. The court has said that if she returns 3/4 of the stolen assets, her sentence could actually be reduced to life imprisonment. Lan has earlier told the court that the quickest way to repay the stolen funds would be to liquidate SCB and sell the assets to repay the State Bank of Vietnam and the people. tens of thousands of people who invested their savings in banks lost money, prompting rare protests from the victims. Lan owned just 5% of shares in SCB on paper. But at her trial, the court concluded that she effectively controlled more than 90% through family, friends and staff. The State Bank said in April that it pumped funds into SCB to stabilize it without revealing how much. The assets owned by Lan and her group include a shopping mall, a harbour and luxurious housing complexes reportedly. In fact, during her first trial in April, Lan was found guilty of embezzling $12.5 billion. But prosecutors said the total damages caused by the scam amounted to $27 billion, equivalent to around 6% of the country's 2023 GDP. Kashmir has broken all records of tourist arrivals in the last few years, and there have been many new additions related to the tourism industry in the valley. From the floating post office to floating ATM on the world-famous Dal Lake, it's the Shikara rides that can now be booked via an app to make things hassle-free for the tourists. Take a look.
A new Uber service has opened for tourists to the Dal Lake in Kashmir. Visitors can now book the famous Shikara rides on an app, 2 weeks in advance with fixed rates. The service promises a more convenient way to rent Shikaras besides saving time and hassle.
It's one place that is on every tourist's bucket list, and ultimately when you find yourself in Srinagar, you have to do the Shikara ride. And to book a Shikara ride, typically you'd go around and haggle with people. We just wanted to cut out the inconvenience and effort that it takes for tourists to book a Shikara. So what we're doing is getting people to book a Shikara on Uber. We're calling it Uber Shikara, of course.
Uber says it is not charging commission from the Shikara owners for its booking app. It is working with the Shikara Union that charges government-approved rates for the rides. Tourists at Dal Lake are excited about the new facility.
I certainly feel it would be much more organized and hassle-free once Uber booking would be available. And if one can pre-book, then certainly people who are coming from other places, they can have that ease of booking, and they would be pretty sure that once they reach here, they will get their Shikara ride on time.
We won't have to fix the price here, stand in queues, and it will be already prepaid most likely, and we won't have to waste time, and we'll enjoy the lake for more. We can give much time to the lake rather than standing in the queue.
Nearly 2.8 million tourists visited the Kashmir Valley in 2024. This included as many as 35,254 foreign visitors. These numbers exclude tourists to religious sites, whose number also runs into millions.
When culture meets innovation, there is definitely a surprise in the offing, and for the first time ever in Srinagar's world-famous Dal Lake, you can book your Shikara on an app. Earlier it used to be only cabs that used to be booked through the apps, but now Shikara rides can also be booked on apps, and the tourists who are visiting Jammu and Kashmir, especially Srinagar, can pre-book their Shikara rides in advance around 15 days before their travel time. This will also help them to have a hassle and haggle-free travel and Shikara rides in the world-famous Dal Lake. With video journalist Feroz Idris Sloan for WION World is One.
On to China now. It has inaugurated its first atmospheric monitoring station in Antarctica. What exactly is the purpose, and what will the station do? It's basically aimed at helping observe environmental changes in the continent. The station is located in Lasman Hills in East Antarctica. What's more, the latest atmospheric station is China's 9th operational atmospheric monitoring station and its first overseas, reportedly. You see, just like the US, China has been expanding its presence both in Antarctica and in the Arctic region to explore resources. According to the director of the Institute of Global Change and Polar Meteorology at the Chinese Academy of Meteorological Sciences, polar regions are the amplifiers of global climate change. What's more, he said that the station's observation data would have unique geographical advantages and scientific value, which would aid the study of the impact of human activities on the environment. But what about China's own contribution to the climate crisis? According to new carbon brief analysis, China's historical emissions within its borders have now caused more global warming than the 27 member states of the EU combined. Remember, emissions of carbon dioxide and greenhouse gas are major leading contributors towards melting of glaciers and polar ice caps. As per the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, if emissions are not limited, it will impact global ice cover and lead to an exponential rise in sea levels by 60 to 70% by the end of the 21st century. What's more, reports suggest Antarctica supports wildlife like penguins, seals, whales, dolphins, and the presence of over 100 manned research stations has led to the inevitable pollution of the land and the surrounding waters, which impacts local ecosystems and endangers wildlife. This is worrying. More so, it stands in stark contrast to China's ambitions in the Arctic and the Antarctica region. Can China address this, is the question. The Indian rupee hit a record low of 84.742 against the US dollar. This basically breaks yesterday's record low of 84.70. Analysts attributing the fall to weakening economic fundamentals, continued foreign institutional investor outflows, and a strengthening US dollar. Additionally, US President-elect Donald Trump has warned BRICS countries of potential 100% tariffs if they create an alternative currency to the dollar. And these threats have intensified the pressure on emerging market currencies, including the rupee, as investors seek the safety of the greenback. The Chinese yuan, for instance, depreciated to a one-year low of 7.3 per dollar. Despite the steep fall, the Reserve Bank of India intervened at critical levels of 84.65 and 84.74 to stabilize the currency. According to Forex participants, the RBI's efforts were aimed at curbing excessive volatility and anchoring the market expectations. However, concerns remain over the widening interest rate gap between India and the US, as slower GDP growth has raised expectations of a potential repo rate cut in India. And such a move could further fuel outflows from the domestic market, keeping the rupee under pressure in the near term. The bitterness of coffee prices set to spill into 2025. Global coffee prices are projected to surge by up to 25%, driven by significant disruptions in the supply chain. I know that's bad news if you're a coffee lover. In fact, Brazil and Vietnam, the world's top coffee producers, are grappling with severe weather conditions impacting their harvests. Brazil, which supplies 1/3 of the world's Arabica coffee, is experiencing its worst drought in over 40 years. Drying up the key growing regions and slashing yields. Meanwhile, Vietnam, the leading producer of Robusta coffee, is battling erratic rainfall and typhoons, which have basically delayed harvesting and reduced the bean quality. These supply chain shocks are causing ripples across the international coffee market. The anticipated shortfall has already sent coffee futures soaring, with Arabica prices reaching record highs and Robusta prices climbing to levels not seen since 1977. This spike is further worsened by economic factors, including the weakening of the Brazilian real and growing global demand, particularly from emerging markets. For consumers, this translates into higher costs, of course, from cafe visits to supermarket purchases, as businesses pass on the burden. Import-dependent countries like Russia face additional challenges as a result of the currency fluctuations, making coffee even more expensive for their markets. The challenges in Brazil and Vietnam reflecting broader concerns about the stability of agricultural supply chains in a changing climate. And financial analysts are closely monitoring whether these countries can actually recover or if the ongoing weather disruptions will continue to impact the production. With a 25% price increase looming, coffee may become a luxury for many, reshaping consumption patterns globally. And as climate resilience becomes critical, the future of coffee hinges on how producers and the market end up adapting to these growing challenges. The who's who of the fashion world braved the cold in London to attend the star-studded British Fashion Awards at the iconic Royal Albert Hall. Well-known celebrities from the world of music, acting, sports graced the occasion in their designer clothes. Also making an appearance on the red carpet were two PETA protesters, by the way, who briefly made their appearance with posters before being escorted away by the security. Take a look. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Modi Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Modi Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the US.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of. A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA. Join the conversation.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
WION brings you a special business talk show where we bring forth the stories of business leaders. From breakthrough technologies to visionary leadership. We will unlock the trends, the tactics, and dive into the minds of the industry's most influential leaders. WION brings you this special series to uncover what drives them in a candid talk show, WION Business Masters.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the US.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of. A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA. Join the conversation. Special business talk show where we bring forth the stories of business leaders. From breakthrough technologies to visionary leadership. We will unlock the trends, the tactics, and dive into the minds of the industry's most influential leaders. WION brings you this special series to uncover what drives them in a candid talk show, WION Business Masters.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Vielleicht nur als Imposant.
Hello there, welcome back. This is WION Wild is One. We are glad you're watching. Time now for Pulse. I'm Eric Njoka.